She was preparing dinner when the Facebook message arrived. I know Richard leaves every night at 7:30. I know because he used to come to my apartment. For 2 years. Patricia's hands trembled as more messages flooded in. Different women, identical stories. Her husband, the man she'd trusted for 33 years, wasn't just unfaithful. He was a predator, systematic, calculated, hunting women across Chicago while she waited at home, believing his lies. At 58, standing in her kitchen with the truth exploding across her phone screen, Patricia faced an impossible choice. Pretend she never saw those messages and preserve her comfortable illusion, or step into the darkness and discover just how deep her husband's betrayal ran. She had no idea that choosing truth would lead her to 5 other women and to Rachel, the daughter her husband denied existed. The ordinary world. The frost on the kitchen window made Lake Michigan look like a watercolor painting, blurred and distant. Patricia Brennan pressed her palm against the cold glass, watching the familiar silhouette of her husband's Ford Explorer disappear around the corner of their Lincoln Park Street. The clock on the microwave read 7:47 p.m., right on schedule. 58 years old, and she could set her watch by Richard's departures. "Going to clear my head," he'd said, kissing her forehead with the mechanical precision of 3 decades of marriage. The same words he'd been using for the past 4 years, maybe longer. Patricia couldn't quite remember when it started. The nightly exits, the vague explanations, the way he'd return around midnight, smelling of cologne she hadn't bought him and cigarettes he'd supposedly quit. She turned back to the sink, where her dinner dishes sat in soapy water that had gone lukewarm. The house felt enormous in his absence. All 4 bedrooms, the finished basement, the backyard that overlooked the neighborhood park. They'd bought this place in 1992. When Richard's contracting business was booming and their daughter Emma was still in elementary school. Now Emma was 31, living in Seattle with her own family, and the house echoed with memories that seemed to mock Patricia's solitude. The November wind rattled the windows. Chicago winters had a way of settling into your bones, Patricia thought, especially when you spent them alone. She dried her hands on a dish towel and walked through the living room, her reflection catching in the darkened television screen. When had she become this woman? Hair more silver than brown, lines around her eyes that deepened when she smiled, which wasn't often anymore. She wasn't old, not really. Her doctor said she was in excellent health. Her book club friends told her she looked a decade younger than her age. But standing in this empty house, watching her husband vanish into the night for the 1,000th time, she felt ancient. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table. A text from Emma. "Mom, did you get the photos of Lily's recital?" Patricia smiled despite herself. Her granddaughter, 7 years old, and already showing signs of Emma's stubborn independence. She typed back quickly, adding heart emojis, the way Emma had taught her last Christmas. Another buzz. This time, not Emma. The notification showed a friend request on Facebook from someone named Jennifer Marquez. The profile picture showed a woman about Patricia's age, dark hair streaked with gray, kind eyes. The message that accompanied the request made Patricia's stomach tighten. "Mrs. Brennan, I know this seems strange, but I need to talk to you about your husband. Please accept this request." "It's urgent?" Patricia's finger hovered over the delete button. Spam? Probably. Some scam targeting lonely housewives. She'd read articles about it in the Chicago Tribune. But something stopped her. She clicked accept, and immediately another message appeared. "Thank you. I know Richard leaves every night around 7:30. I know because he used to come to my apartment in Wicker Park. For 2 years. I'm not the only one, Mrs. Brennan. We need to talk." The phone slipped from Patricia's hands, clattering onto the hardwood floor. First tremors of truth. Patricia didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling while Richard snored beside her, his breath carrying the faint scent of whiskey and perfume. He'd come home at 11:52 p.m., exactly as he always did, and kissed her goodnight without meeting her eyes. How long had she been blind? At 6 a.m., she gave up on sleep and made coffee, her hands shaking as she measured the grounds. The kitchen was still dark. the winter sun not yet risen over Lake Michigan. Through the window, she could see the skeletal trees of the park, their branches heavy with yesterday's snow. Her phone sat on the counter like an unexploded bomb. Richard appeared at 6:30, already dressed in his work clothes, jeans, flannel shirt, boots caked with dried concrete dust. At 62, he still had the build of a man who worked with his hands, though lately he'd hired younger guys to do the actual labor while he managed the business side. "Morning," he said, pouring himself coffee. "Got an early job in Evanston. Foundation inspection." Patricia nodded, unable to trust her voice. He studied her for a moment. "You okay? You look tired." "Didn't sleep well," she managed. "Take some Tylenol PM tonight," he said, already moving toward the door. "I'll probably be late. Meeting with a supplier after work." And just like that, he was gone. Patricia waited until his truck pulled out of the driveway before she opened Facebook Messenger. 3 new messages from Jennifer Marquez, all sent in the early morning hours. "I understand if you need time to process this. I'm not asking for anything. I just thought you should know the truth. There's a coffee shop called The Daily Grind on Armitage. I'll be there tomorrow at 10 a.m. if you want to talk." Patricia's first instinct was to block the woman, delete the messages, pretend this wasn't happening. 33 years of marriage didn't crumble because of Facebook messages from strangers. Richard was a good provider. He'd never raised his hand to her. They had a daughter, a granddaughter, a mortgage, a life built brick by brick over decades. But as she sat in her silent kitchen, watching the sky lighten over Chicago, Patricia realized she'd been making excuses for years. The late nights, the secretive phone calls, the way he'd started password protecting everything, his phone, his laptop, even his email. The increasing distance in his touch, as if she were a roommate rather than a wife. She'd told herself it was normal. Marriage evolves. People grow apart. At 58, you're supposed to be grateful for stability, not chase passion like some desperate teenager. But this wasn't about passion. This was about respect. About truth. Patricia picked up her phone and typed, "I'll be there." The Daily Grind was tucked between a yoga studio and a vintage bookstore on Armitage Avenue. The kind of independent coffee shop that survived on loyal regulars and excellent espresso. Patricia arrived 10 minutes early, her stomach churning with nerves she hadn't felt since her first job interview 40 years ago. Jennifer Marquez sat at a corner table, wearing a burgundy sweater and jeans, her hands wrapped around a ceramic mug. When she saw Patricia, she stood, her face a mixture of relief and apprehension. "Mrs. Brennan," she said softly, "thank you for coming." Up close, Patricia could see the woman was probably in her mid-50s, with laugh lines around her eyes and a warmth that seemed genuine. Not the homewrecker Patricia had imagined during her sleepless night. "It's Patricia," she heard herself say, sitting down across from Jennifer. "And I need to know everything." Jennifer took a deep breath. "I met Richard 3 years ago at a Home Depot in Wicker Park. I was buying supplies for a bathroom renovation. I'd just bought a condo after my divorce. He offered to help me load the vanity into my car. He was charming, funny, attentive. Said he was separated, going through a difficult divorce himself." Patricia felt something cold settle in her chest. 3 years ago, they'd celebrated their 30th anniversary with a weekend in Door County. Richard had given her a pearl necklace and told her she was the love of his life. "He started coming over too, 3 nights a week," Jennifer continued, her voice steady but pained. "Always between 8 and 11. Said he worked late, that he was staying with a friend while the divorce finalized. I believed him. God, I was so stupid." "You weren't stupid," Patricia said quietly. "He's a good liar." Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. "It took me 18 months to figure it out. I hired a private investigator when he wouldn't introduce me to his daughter. The investigator sent me photos of Richard leaving this beautiful house in Lincoln Park with a woman with you, wedding ring on, kissing you goodbye before work." Patricia closed her eyes, remembering 1,000 morning goodbyes, each one a performance. "I confronted him," Jennifer said. "He cried, begged me to forgive him. promised he'd tell you everything and choose me. Then he ghosted me. Blocked my number, changed his email, disappeared completely. It destroyed me, Mrs. Brennan. I spent 6 months in therapy trying to understand how someone could be so cruel. Why are you telling me this now? Patricia asked, her voice barely a whisper. Jennifer reached into her purse and pulled out a tablet. Because 2 months ago, I joined a support group for women recovering from emotional abuse. And at one of the meetings, I met someone who told an identical story. Different details, same pattern, same man. She turned the tablet toward Patricia, showing a private Facebook group called Narcissistic Abuse Recovery, Chicago. The page had 342 members. Her name is Diane Fletcher, Jennifer said. Richard told her he was a widower. Dated her for 9 months before she discovered he had a wife and at least 2 other girlfriends. Patricia stared at the screen, her world tilting on its axis. There are more, Patricia. At least for women we've found so far. Maybe more we haven't identified. He has a pattern: meets women at hardware stores, grocery stores, places where he looks helpful and competent. Targets divorced or widowed women, usually between 45 and 60. Tells them exactly what they want to hear. Keeps them compartmentalized, separate, none of us knowing about the others. A predator, Patricia whispered, remembering the title that had seemed so dramatic when she first saw it. Not dramatic at all. Accurate. Jennifer nodded. We want to meet with you, all of us. Not to hurt you, but to figure out what to do. He can't keep getting away with this. Patricia looked out the window at Armitage Avenue, watching people hurry past in their winter coats, living normal lives where husbands came home and told the truth. She thought about Emma in Seattle, about her granddaughter Lily, who thought Grandpa hung the moon. When Patricia asked, "Tomorrow night, 7 p.m. There's a community center in Bucktown. Will you come?" Patricia thought about all the nights she'd stood at her kitchen window, watching Richard's taillights disappear into the darkness. All the times she'd swallowed her questions, her doubts, her growing sense that something was wrong. No more. I'll be there. Strength in numbers. The Bucktown Community Center smelled like old coffee and floor polish. Patricia arrived early, her palms sweating despite the December cold that had settled over Chicago like a frozen blanket. The room Jennifer had reserved was small folding chairs arranged in a circle, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, a table with coffee and cookies that no one would touch. She was the first to arrive. Patricia chose a chair facing the door, her coat still buttoned, her purse clutched in her lap like a shield. Every instinct screamed at her to leave, to go home, to preserve the illusion of her marriage. But Jennifer's words kept echoing. He can't keep getting away with this. At 6:55, women began filtering in. Jennifer arrived with a woman Patricia recognized from the tablet photo, Diane Fletcher. Tall and elegant in her early 50s, with auburn hair and the kind of posture that suggested yoga or dance training. She smiled at Patricia with sad understanding. "Thank you for coming," Diane said, taking the seat beside her. "I know this is impossibly difficult." 2 more women entered together. One was Latina, maybe 45, with worried eyes and a nervous energy that reminded Patricia of a trapped bird. The other was black, closer to 60, carrying herself with a dignity that seemed hard-won. "I'm Melissa Torres," the younger woman said, her voice soft. "I met Richard 2 years ago at a Julisco on Ashland. He helped me carry groceries to my car." The older woman extended her hand to Patricia. "Angela Reeves. I'm 61, widowed 3 years before Richard found me at a church fundraiser in Bronzeville, told me God had brought us together." Patricia felt bile rise in her throat. A 5th woman hurried in just before 7, petite blonde, maybe 50, with tears already streaming down her face. "I'm sorry, I'm late. I'm Sarah Chen. I almost didn't come." "But you did," Jennifer said gently. "That's what matters." They sat in their circle, 6 women connected by one man's lies, and Patricia felt the walls she'd built around her denial begin to crumble. Jennifer spoke first. "I've been meeting with Diane, Melissa, Angela, and Sarah for the past 6 weeks. We've been trying to understand the pattern, to figure out how he managed to keep all of us separate for so long. Patricia, we wanted you here because you're the only one he actually married. You're the original victim. The longest standing, 33 years, Patricia heard herself say. I met him in 1991. I was 25, working as a secretary at an insurance company. He came in to file a claim after his truck got hit in a parking lot. Asked me out right there at the counter. Melissa leaned forward. Let me guess, he was charming. Made you feel like the most important person in the room? Patricia nodded slowly. He sent flowers to my office every day for a week. Wrote me love letters by hand. Told me he'd been waiting his whole life to meet someone like me. The love bombing, Angela said quietly. Classic narcissistic predator behavior. They make you feel extraordinary so you'll forgive the ordinary cruelties later. When did it change? Diane asked. When did he start disappearing? Patricia thought back, trying to pinpoint the moment. Emma was born in 1993. For a while, Richard was present. A good father, or so I thought. But as she got older, as the business grew, he started working later. Always had meetings, suppliers to meet, jobs to check on. By the time Emma was in high school, he was gone most nights. I thought it was normal. Men work hard to provide for their families. That's what they count on, Jennifer said. Women our age, we were raised to be grateful, to not ask questions, to trust. Sarah spoke for the first time, her voice trembling. He told me his wife died of cancer. Showed me photos of you. I didn't know it was you, then Anne said. Looking at them was too painful. I held him while he cried. Patricia felt something snap inside her chest. Not heartbreak, she'd already grieved that in private. This was rage, white-hot and clarifying. How many others do you think there are? She asked. The women exchanged glances. Finally, Melissa spoke. Based on what we've pieced together from credit card statements, Iser Weichard gave me a card to use for groceries when we were together. There might be 7 or 8 regular women. Maybe more casual encounters. 33 years, Patricia repeated. How long has he been doing this? I hired a private investigator, Angela said. Former Chicago PD detective, specializes in infidelity cases. He found records going back to at least 2005. That's as far as he could trace definitively, but he suspects it's been happening longer. 20 years. Maybe their entire marriage. Patricia looked around the circle at these women, these strangers who understood her pain better than her own daughter could. Different ages, different backgrounds, different stories, but all of them manipulated by the same man, all of them discarded when they became inconvenient. What do we do? She asked. Jennifer pulled out a folder. We document everything. Every lie, every timeline, every woman we can identify. We're not doing this for revenge, Patricia. We're doing it because he's still out there, still hunting. Last week, Melissa saw him at a coffee shop on Halsted, talking to a woman who looked about 50. Same routine, helpful, charming, interested. We can't stop him from being a terrible person, Diane added. But we can warn the women he targets. We can make sure his next victims know what they're walking into. And you, Angela said, looking directly at Patricia, you have the power to file for divorce, to protect your assets, to get out before he destroys you financially as well as emotionally. Patricia thought about the house in Lincoln Park, the savings account Richard managed, the retirement funds she'd never bothered to check. She thought about Emma, about having to explain that her father wasn't who they thought he was. But mostly, she thought about standing at that kitchen window for 4 more years, 10 more years, the rest of her life, watching him leave, knowing the truth, doing nothing. I need to hire a lawyer, she said. A good one. Jennifer smiled. Already done. My divorce attorney is the best in Chicago. She's expecting your call. Melissa reached across the circle and squeezed Patricia's hand. You're not alone anymore. For the first time in months, maybe years, Patricia felt the suffocating weight of isolation lift. These women didn't pity her. They understood her. They'd survived the same predator and come out the other side stronger. There's something else, Sarah said hesitantly. something we debated telling you. But you deserve to know everything. Patricia braced herself. Richard has a daughter, Sarah continued. Not Emma, another daughter. She's 26, lives in Milwaukee. Her name is Rachel. Her mother was one of Richard's girlfriends in the late 90s. The room tilted. Patricia gripped the armrests of her chair. He pays child support, Angela added gently. Has been for 26 years. The investigator found the court records. Your joint bank account shows monthly withdrawals labeled equipment rental, but they're actually support payments. Another daughter, another family, another entire life hidden from her. I want to meet her, Patricia said, her voice steady despite the chaos in her mind. Rachel, I want to meet her. Jennifer hesitated. Are you sure? That might be, I'm sure, Patricia interrupted. If Richard has been lying to me for 33 years, if he has another child, if he's been systematically destroying women's lives, then I need to know the full truth. All of it. No more secret. The women nodded, understanding flowing through the circle like a current. They stayed until nearly 10 o'clock, sharing stories, comparing notes, weaving together the full picture of Richard Brennan's double no, triple, quadruple life. By the time Patricia left, she had a folder full of evidence, phone numbers for each woman, and an appointment with Jennifer's divorce attorney for Monday morning. She drove home through the dark Chicago streets, past the Christmas lights beginning to appear in windows, past couples walking hand in hand on the sidewalk. The city looked different, or maybe she was different. When she pulled into her driveway, Richard's truck was already there. The kitchen light was on. He was home early. Patricia sat in her car for a long moment, gathering strength. Then she grabbed her folder, stepped out into the December cold, and walked toward the house. The truth was inside those walls, 33 years of it, and she was done pretending not to see it, unmasking the predator. Richard was sitting at the kitchen table when Patricia walked in, a beer in his hand, scrolling through his phone. He looked up with mild curiosity, the same expression he'd worn for 3 decades when she came home from errands or book club. Where were you? He asked, not accusatory, just mildly interested. Patricia set her folder on the counter, her coat still on, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. Every instinct told her to retreat, to deflect, to preserve the peace. 58 years of conditioning screamed at her to be pleasant, to be accommodating. But she thought of Jennifer's face across the coffee shop table, Melissa's trembling hands, Angela's hard-won dignity, Sarah's tears, Rachel, his other daughter. I was meeting with some women, Patricia said, her voice steadier than she expected. Women who know you very well. Richard's expression didn't change. That was the first tell for lack of reaction. A truly innocent man would have been confused, curious, maybe even amused. Richard just took a sip of his beer and waited. Jennifer Marquez, Patricia continued, pulling out the folder. Diane Fletcher, Melissa Torres, Angela Reeves, Sarah Chen. Should I go on? Something flickered behind his eyes. Not panic. Calculation. Patricia watched him assess the situation, choose his strategy, prepare his response. She'd seen this look before when Emma had confronted him about missing her high school graduation, when the IRS had audited their taxes, when anything threatened his carefully constructed reality. I don't know what you're talking about, he said, finally, calm, reasonable, the voice of a man unfairly accused. Patricia pulled out the first documented printout of Jennifer's messages, complete with timestamps. Jennifer says you told her you were divorced. For 2 years, Richard. 2 years of lying to a woman who thought you loved her. She's delusional, Richard said, his tone shifting to concern. Honey, I helped her at Home Depot once, maybe twice. She became obsessed. I had to block her number because she wouldn't leave me alone. The lie came so smoothly, so convincingly, that for a split second, Patricia almost believed him. That was his gift, the ability to reshape reality with his words, to make you doubt your own perceptions. But she'd spent the last 2 days preparing for this. Jennifer had warned her about gaslighting, about the techniques predators used to maintain control. Then, explain Diane, Patricia said, pulling out more papers. And Melissa, and Angela, and Sarah. 5 women, Richard. 5 women, in the last 3 years alone. I don't. And Rachel. Patricia's voice cracked on the name. Your daughter in Milwaukee, 26 years old. The child support you've been hiding as equipment rental in our joint account for over 2 decades. The mask slipped just for a moment. Patricia saw something ugly flash across his face. Not guilt, not shame, annoyance, irritation that he'd been caught. Then it was gone, replaced by wounded incredulity. Patricia, you can't seriously believe I hired a private investigator, she lied smooth. Jennifer had taught her this to match his energy. Don't show weakness. I have photographs, credit card statements, motel receipts. I have testimony from 6 women, Richard, 6 women, whose lives you've systematically destroyed. Richard stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. He was a big man, 6'2", 200 pounds of muscle, despite his age. Patricia had never been afraid of him physically, but in this moment, watching his face harden, she took an involuntary step backward. You've lost your mind, he said, his voice dropping to something cold and unfamiliar. Those women are lying. They're probably trying to extort money from me, and you're so desperate for drama, so bored with your comfortable life, that you're falling for it. There, it was the blame shift. She was the problem. She was bored, dramatic, falling for lies. I want a divorce, Patricia said, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. I've already hired an attorney. I'm filing on Monday. Richard laughed. Actually laughed. On what grounds? Because some crazy women on Facebook told you stories. Good luck with that, Patricia. I've been a faithful husband for 33 years. I work hard. I provide for this family. If you want to throw that away because you're having some kind of midlife crisis, that's your choice. But you're not getting my business. You're not getting this house. Actually, Patricia said, pulling out the final document, the one Jennifer's attorney had helped her prepare. Illinois is a no-fault divorce state. I don't need to prove adultery. I just need to prove irreconcilable differences. Which, Richard, we definitely have. She slid the paper across the table. This is a temporary restraining order. You have 24 hours to move out of this house. My attorney will be in touch about asset division. The silence that followed was deafening. Richard stared at the document, then at Patricia, then back at the document. She watched him process, recalculate, search for another angle of attack. You're serious, he said finally. Completely. After everything I've done for you. The life I've given you. Patricia thought about the last 33 years, the empty nights, the unanswered questions, the slow erosion of her self-worth as she tried to be good enough, interesting enough, young enough to keep his attention. You didn't give me a life, Richard. You gave me a role in your performance. I was a prop, a cover. The wife at home who made you look stable and respectable while you hunted other women. Don't be so dramatic. So I had a few relationships. Men do that. It doesn't mean I didn't love you. There, it was the minimization. A few relationships. As if destroying multiple women's lives was a minor hobby, like golf or woodworking. Get out, Patricia said quietly. This is my house. Get out. Richard's face twisted with something Patricia had never seen before, pure, undiluted rage. For a terrifying moment, she thought he might become violent. Her hand inched toward her phone in her coat pocket. But Richard was too smart for that. Domestic violence would complicate his narrative, give her ammunition in court. Instead, he grabbed his beer, his keys, and his phone. You'll regret this, he said from the doorway. You're 58 years old, Patricia. Good luck starting over. Good luck finding someone better. You think any man is going to want a bitter, divorced woman at your age? Patricia met his eyes. I think I'd rather be alone than be your fool. He slammed the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Patricia stood in her kitchen now, not theirs, and waited for the tears to come. But instead, she felt something else. Something she hadn't experienced in so long she'd almost forgotten what it was. Relief. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer. How did it go? Patricia typed back. He's gone. It's over. Three dots appeared immediately. Then, it's just beginning. Proud of you. Reclaiming Dignity Spring came to Chicago the way it always did, reluctantly, fighting against winter's grip with stubborn warmth and tentative green. Patricia stood on her back deck in early May, watching the park beyond her yard come alive with joggers, dog walkers, families with strollers. 6 months since the confrontation. 4 months since the divorce was finalized. 3 months since Richard had tried to contest the settlement and lost spectacularly when Jennifer, Diane, Melissa, Angela, and Sarah all agreed to testify. The house was quiet now, but it was a different kind of quiet. Not the suffocating silence of loneliness, but the peaceful stillness of solitude. Patricia had learned the difference. Her phone rang. Emma's face appeared on the screen. "Hey, Mom," her daughter said, and Patricia could hear Lily chattering in the background, just checking in. "How are you feeling about tomorrow?" "Tomorrow?" Patricia smiled, despite the flutter of nerves in her stomach. Nervous, excited, terrified. "That's normal for a first day," Emma said gently. "But Mom, I'm so proud of you. Going back to school at 58, that's incredible." Patricia looked at the acceptance letter from DePaul University still pinned to her refrigerator. She'd applied on a whim, encouraged by Angela, who taught there part-time. The social work program had accepted her despite her age, despite her decades away from formal education. "I want to help women like me," Patricia had told the admissions counselor during her interview. "Women who've lost themselves in someone else's lies. I want to teach them they can rebuild." The counselor had smiled. "You'll make an excellent social worker, Ms. Brennan. Ms. Brennan, not Mrs. She'd reclaimed her maiden name 3 months ago. Patricia Marie Brennan. The same woman who'd existed before Richard, rediscovered. "How's the house sale going?" Emma asked. "Closing next week," Patricia said. The Lincoln Park house, too big, too full of ghosts, was being sold. She'd found a cozy 2-bedroom condo in Andersonville, close to the lake, close to the university, close to a life she was building for herself. "I'm keeping the essentials and donating the rest. And Dad." Patricia's relationship with that word had complicated. Richard was still Emma's father, still Lily's grandfather. Patricia had worked hard in therapy to separate her anger at him from Emma's right to maintain her own relationship, however she chose. "I haven't heard from him since the divorce," Patricia said truthfully. "Angela's investigator says he's moved to Des Moines. Fresh hunting ground, I suppose." "God, Mom, I'm so sorry you went through this." "I'm not," Patricia said, surprising herself. "I mean, I'm sorry it happened, but I'm not sorry I found out. I'm not sorry I left. For the first time in 33 years, Emma, I feel like myself." A knock on her front door interrupted the conversation. "I've got to go, honey. Someone's here." "Love you. Love you too, Mom." Patricia opened the door to find Jennifer, Diane, Melissa, Angela, and Sarah standing on her porch, holding bags from Lou Malnati's and a bottle of Prosecco. "Moving day celebration," Melissa announced, pushing past Patricia into the living room where boxes were stacked and labeled. They'd been meeting monthly since January the 6th of them, plus 3 other women they'd identified as Richard's victims. What had started as a support group had evolved into genuine friendship. They'd celebrated Diane's new job, Melissa's daughter's graduation, Sarah's decision to start dating again. And they'd mourned together when Angela's investigator discovered 2 more women, one in Naperville, one in Oak Park, both currently involved with Richard before his move to Iowa. "We tried to warn them," Angela had said at their last meeting. "Sent messages, called, even showed up at one woman's house. She called us crazy, said Richard was the best thing that ever happened to her. Some people have to learn the hard way," Patricia had replied. "We did." Now, watching her friends unpack deep dish pizza and plastic cups, Patricia felt a surge of gratitude, so intense it brought tears to her eyes. "What's wrong?" Jennifer asked immediately, setting down the pizza. "Nothing," Patricia said, wiping her eyes. "Everything's right." For the first time in so long, Sarah pulled her into a hug. "You've come so far." "When I think about that first night at the community center, how scared you looked, I was terrified," Patricia admitted. Part of me wanted to run out of that room and pretend none of you existed. But you didn't, Diane said. You stayed. You fought. You rebuilt. They ate pizza on Patricia's empty living room floor, sitting on moving blankets because most of her furniture was already gone. They shared Prosecco from solo cups and laughed about the absurdity of it, all 6 women, connected by one man's systematic cruelty, now bonded by something stronger than trauma. I have news, Angela announced when the pizza boxes were empty. The investigator found Rachel's mother. She lives in Kenosha now. I called her. Patricia's breath caught. Rachel Richards' other daughter, the secret sister Emma, still didn't know about. Patricia had been trying to work up the courage to reach out for months, and, she asked, her name is Linda Morrison. She's 63 now. She and Richard had an affair from 1997 to 1999. She got pregnant. Richard denied the child was his. She sued for paternity and won. She's been raising Rachel alone ever since. Does she want to meet me? Patricia asked. Angela smiled. She said she's been wanting to meet you for 26 years. She felt guilty about the affair, didn't know Richard was married until she was already pregnant. She tried to tell you once, sent a letter to your house, but Richard intercepted it. Patricia thought about 1998, when Emma was 5, when Patricia had been working part-time as a receptionist and trying to be the perfect wife and mother. She'd had no idea Richard had a pregnant girlfriend in Wisconsin. I want to meet her, Patricia said. And Rachel. They're part of this story, too. More victims of Richard's lies. I have her number, Angela said, handing Patricia a piece of paper. She's waiting for your call. That night, after her friends had left and the condo was empty except for boxes and memories, Patricia sat on her back deck under the May stars and dialed Linda Morrison's number. The woman who answered had a gentle voice, weathered by experience. Hello, Linda, this is Patricia Brennan. Richards, she paused, correcting her. Richard's ex-wife. Oh my God, Linda breathed. I never thought. Thank you for calling. They talked for 3 hours. Linda shared her story, how Richard had swept her off her feet at a nursing conference in Milwaukee, how he'd promised to leave his wife, how he'd abandoned her when she refused to get an abortion. Patricia shared her 33 years of half-truths and nightly disappearances, the discovery, the divorce, the sisterhood of survivors. He destroyed so much, Linda said quietly. But he didn't destroy us. We survived him. And our daughters deserve to know the truth, Patricia said. All of it. Rachel would love to meet you, Linda said. And Emma, if she's willing. They're half-sisters. They should know each other. After they hung up, Patricia sat in the darkness, thinking about the strange paths that lead to healing. 6 months ago, she'd been standing at her kitchen window, watching her husband's taillights disappear into the night, believing she was alone. Now she had Jennifer, Diane, Melissa, Angela, and Sarah. Now she had Linda and Rachel waiting to meet her. Now she had a degree, to pursue a new home waiting in Andersonville. A granddaughter who thought her grandmother was the bravest person in the world. Emma had called earlier in the week, asking, Mom, how did you do it? How did you find the strength to leave after so long? Patricia had thought about that question for a long time before answering. I realized that staying was killing me slowly. Not physically, but the part of me that mattered, my self-respect, my dignity, my truth. At 58, I didn't have another 33 years to waste. I had maybe 20, maybe 30 good years left. And I decided I wanted to spend them being myself, not performing for someone who didn't even see me. I'm so proud of you, Emma had whispered. I'm proud of me too, Patricia had replied, for the first time in my life. Now, standing on the edge of a new, Patricia Brennan looked up at the Chicago sky, the same sky that had hung over all her years with Richard, but somehow brighter now, clearer, full of stars she'd forgotten existed. She pulled out her phone and sent a message to the group chat she shared with the other women. Tomorrow, I start school. Next week, I move to Andersonville. Next month, I meet Rachel. Thank you for giving me my life back. The responses came quickly. We didn't give you anything. You reclaimed it yourself. Jennifer, you inspired all of us. Diane, proof that it's never too late. Melissa, age is just a number. Dignity is forever. Angela, here's to second acts. Sarah, Patricia smiled, set down her phone, and walked back into her house. Her choice, her future, and began packing for a life she'd almost thought was impossible. At 58, she was just beginning. And Richard Brennan, wherever he was, could never take that away from her.